Hey, Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitan Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Gurave Gaurachandraya Radhikaye Tadalaye Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha Yam Pravajantam Anupeta Apeta Krityam Rapayano Viraha Katara Ajuhava Putreti Tan Maitaya Tadavo Binedus Tam Sarvabhutam Hridayam Munimanatosme Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatam Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayat Bhaktya Vihina Parada Lakshay Kiptashtikamari Tarangamadye Kripa Maitvam Sharanam Prapanna Vrinde Namaste Sharanada Vindam Tave Vasmi Najivami Tvaya Vina Iti Vigyaya Radhe Tvam Nainam Sharanandike Vancha Kalpatarubhascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Okay, so we're going to begin by offering our most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of our beloved Gurus, unto Sri Guru Pada Padma Nitilita Bhavishta, Om Vishnu Pad Asto Tatsat Sri Srimad Abhaya Chanaravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and unto Sri Guru Pada Padmanithalita Bhavishta Om Vishnu Pad Asto Tatsat Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Raj, unto our exalted Rupanuga Guru Varga and all the Sama Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So today in Indian calendar is the disappearance day of Sri Jayadeva Goswami. So we are enjoined to discuss the life, mission, contributions, pastimes of these great personalities. We must honor them and entreat them for their mercy. And Jayadeva Goswami was a very important historical personality in our line. Gurudev speaks about him regularly, especially his literary contributions, Gita Govinda and Dasavatar Stotram, and others as well, but especially those two. And also that, although he appeared maybe 300 years before Mahaprabhu, there's some dispute, 200, 300, whether he appeared in the 11th century, 12th century, whatever. He was the first to write about Krishna's relationship with Srimati Radhika, where he may become controlled by her love. Right? Anyway, that story will come up. So I was looking for different sources about him, and there are some ISKCON has some articles. Gurudev spoke in different times, especially on Parikram at Champakahata, now it's Champahati, about him. There's a Gaudiya Mat now at the place where Jayadeva Goswami used to live. But the one that has the most information is a book compiled by Sri Bhakti Vallabha Tirtha Goswami Maharaj, great disciple of Srila Bhakti Dayata Madhav Maharaj, and who succeeded him as the Acharya of that mission. He wrote Sri Chaitanya and His Associates, which is a very authoritative compilation of historical information about the major personalities in our line. And he references different scriptures, statements and writings of different acharyas. So it's a wealth of information. So there's so much in that. So I thought I would read from that. I think we can read the whole article. It's quite a bit, though, actually, more than any other source. And it covers what Gurudev spoke about as well. So I think that's fine. And he and Gurudev were very close, very dear friends. So this is actually the very first chapter in that book. So I'm just going to read it verbatim, maybe pause time to time. So, Srila Jayadeva Goswami appeared in either the 11th or 12th century of the Shaka era. There is a difference of opinions about the place of his birth. The majority opinion holds that he hailed from the village of Kenduvilva, presently in the district of Birbhum. Others hold that he was born in Odisha or in South India. Okay. Kenduvilva is situated, but he's obviously taking the side of the Kenduvilva, is situated about 20 miles. Oops, something went out here. Okay. Sorry, we had a power problem here. I'm going to close this, reopen it. Sorry, we had a misconnection with our internet. Okay, we should be back now. All right, so I hope I didn't miss anything. Oh yeah, we did for a while. Yeah. Okay, sorry. And this YouTube one is going to get all messed up. It's material world. What are you going to do? So, Kenduvilva is situated about 20 miles south of Sururi on the banks of the Ajay River. In the Gaudiya Vaishnav Abhidan, it is stated that Jayadeva Goswami found his Radha Madhav deities in this river's waters. It is also stated there that he used to rest and worship at the temple of Shiva, known as Lord Kusheshvara, which is also on the banks of the Ajaya River. His father was Bojadev and his mother Vama Devi. So Jayadeva Goswami lived for a long time in Navadvip. During the reign of the king of Bengal, Lakshman Sen, making his home not far from the king's palace. That's on the it's called the Eastern Bank. It's on the other side from Champahata. At that time, the king's chief scholar was Govardhan Acharya. According to Ashutosh Deb's Bengali dictionary, Jayadeva Goswami was Lakshman Sen's court poet. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote in his Navadvip Mahatmya that Lakshman Sen was delighted when he heard Jayadeva Goswami's hymn to the 10 avatars, the Dash Avatar Stotra. When Govinda Acharya notified the king that it was Jayadeva Goswami who had composed the hymn, the king became desirous to meet the poet. He went incognito to Jayadeva Goswami's house. And when he saw him, he noticed that Jayadeva Goswami possessed the characteristics of a great and powerful spiritual personality. Greatly impressed and attracted by Jayadeva Goswami, the king revealed his identity to Jayadeva and invited him to come and live in the royal palace. Jayadeva Goswami was leading a much renounced life and was therefore unwilling to live in the opulent environment of the palace. He told the king that he preferred to live in Jagannath Puri. So this is kind of important. It's going to come up later. He has this conversation with the king and he says directly, I was living peacefully, renounced, but now you want me to be with you. I don't want to live with the king. I want to go to Jagannath Puri and live with Lord Jagannath. Okay, so he made that statement, right? Lakshman Sen was disappointed by Jayadeva Goswami's intentions. So he quickly suggested that Jayadeva take up residence in the village of Champahati, saying that it was a place suitable for a person who wished to lead a meditative life. He also promised that he would never come to disturb him again. Very pious king, right? When Jayadeva Goswami agreed, Lakshman Sen had a cottage built for him in the village which was formerly known as Champakahata, named after the beautiful garden of champa trees and the village market where its flowers were sold. It was in this village that Mahaprabhu's associate, Dvija Vaninath, received a vision of him in the Satya Yuga, seeing him in the form of a brahmana whose skin was the color of a champa flower. Similarly, Jayadeva Goswami had a vision here, first of Radha Madhav, then of their combined form as the golden champa-colored Gauranga Mahaprabhu. That champak flower, there's a famous picture of Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. I believe he was in Hawaii at the time, yeah. And they have those trees. And this champa flower is very beautiful. It comes in many colors, actually. But it also comes in a beautiful golden, yellowish golden color. And those trees are quite prolific. We had one in our yard in Bangalore when we were living in the city. And it was always producing flowers all year round, just beautiful flowers. Even you break off a branch and just stick it in the ground, and a new tree will come. It's just a beautiful, beautiful tree. And there's a picture of Srila Prabhupada. He's holding one, and he's looking at it in a very soft and meditative way, contemplative way. And it is said that Srila Prabhupada commented, "Oh, this is the color of Mahaprabhu." It was Udipan for him. And so there have been many drawings and paintings of that photo as well. I can see it in my mind's eye just thinking about it. So he was living in that place, and we have been to that place. At one time, it was just nothing but those trees, right? And merchants would come, and over the decades and centuries, became a marketplace for selling these very fragrant and lovely flowers. So, after the Lord gave Jayadeva Goswami this vision, he told him to go to Jagannath Puri. Although Jayadeva Goswami was sad to leave the future abode of the Lord, he obeyed the Lord's command and made his way to Puri, where it is said that he was the court poet of the king of Odisha. So this is not necessarily chronological, the different things he's going to be telling, because a lot went on before that. But this order of the Lord was, you and your wife had wished this some time back. Do you remember? You said, I want to go to Puri. Now you must come and be with me. Because Lord Jagannath wanted him to be there, and he wanted to hear his beautiful poetry. And there, many special pastimes were going to take place as a result of that. And Mahaprabhu spent considerable time in Puri as well, right? The last half of his life. And Lord Jagannath and Mahaprabhu are non-different. But this is long before Mahaprabhu was even to appear. But he went and he spent the remainder of his life in the abode of Lord Jagannath, where he wrote the transcendental poem based on the sentiments of love in separation, known as Gita Govinda, or Ashtapadi. Indeed, Mahaprabhu told Jayadeva Goswami, while giving him the vision in Navadvip, that after appearing there, he would take sannyas and go to Jagannath Puri, where he would relish the Gita Govinda. So when he had sent him, that book had not been written, but going to Puri and having had that vision of Mahaprabhu, and Puri has the speciality of being the place of deep separation from Krishna that Radhika experienced after Krishna had left for Dwarka. And Mahaprabhu spent his last years there. Our Bhakti Pramod Puri Goswami Maharaj spent his last time there. Our Gurudev Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, our Shiksha Sannyas Guru, actually disappeared in Puri as well. A very special Puri, right? So, further information about the life of Jayadeva Goswami is found in the preface to the Kolkata Basumati Sahitya Mandir's edition of the Gita Govinda. Quote, sometime prior to the Muslim conquest of Delhi, King Manikya Chandra ordered the writing of the book Alankar Shekhar, in which Jayadeva Goswami is mentioned as the court poet of the king of Odisha. So this historical cross-reference to Jayadev from that time. Sridhar Das, the son of one of the chief courtiers of Lakshman Sen, included many of Jayadeva Goswami's verses in his anthology Sad Ukti Karnamrita, citing a work named Amiyaba Kavya. The colophon to one ancient manuscript of the Gita Govinda states, quote, Jayadeva Goswami had a great reputation as a poet during the time of Lakshman Sen. I don't know what a colophon is. Anybody know what a colophon is? I have no idea. Colophon, meaning. Oh, a statement at the end of a book, typically with the printer's emblem, giving information about its authorship and printing. Okay, so never stop learning, right? So going on. So in other words, references to Jayadeva Goswami and crediting him with authorship of some of the information and poetry that was included in that book. So here's a nice story. Jayadeva Goswami's marriage to Padmavati. That was his wife's name, Padmavati. According to legend, Lord Jagannath himself ordered Jayadeva Goswami to marry his wife, Padmavati. The story is told in the Vishvakosh as follows. There was once a Brahmana who was without offspring, despite having worshipped Lord Jagannath for many years in the hope of having a son. Finally, he and his wife had a daughter, and they named her Padmavati. When she came of marriageable age, the Brahmana brought her to Lord Jagannath to offer her to his lotus feet. This was sometimes done by very pious persons, take their daughter to become a dasi of Lord Jagannath. Nowadays, the idea of temple dasis has been corrupted. But back then, these were special girls. They had to be highly qualified, very intelligent, very beautiful, and they were trained in the art of dance and singing, and they were special servants of the deity. Ramananda Roy, Mahaprabhu's intimate associate, trained these dasis in Jagannath Puri because he's Vishaka and he knows all the arts of dance and music. And he personally trained these girls himself. So they offered their daughter to Lord Jagannath. When he saw them, Lord Jagannath himself said to the Brahmana, it's a very high-class Brahmana, right? I have a servant whose name is Jayadeva Goswami. He has given up family life and has dedicated himself to chanting my names. Give your daughter to him in marriage. So the Brahmana took his daughter to Jayadeva Goswami and asked him to marry his daughter. However, since Jayadeva Goswami had no desire to get married, he refused to agree to any arrangement. He had no attachments. He was completely a great, pure devotee. He was not yet married. Why would he need or want to get married? Then the Brahmana told him that it was Lord Jagannath himself who had arranged this marriage. And without another word, he left, leaving his daughter behind. Jayadeva Goswami found himself totally unprepared for this situation and told the girl, tell me where you want to go and I will take you and leave you there. You cannot stay here. Padmavati started to cry and said, My father brought me here to marry you on Jagannath Dev's order. You are my husband, my all in all. If you do not accept me, then I will fall down at your feet and die right here. You are my only hope, my Lord. The poet and scholar Jayadeva Goswami could not abandon her after such a heartfelt plea. So he became a householder. Now she, as you're going to hear in different pastimes, is also a greatly exalted devotee. And this arrangement for the two of them was based on the desire of Lord Jagannath. This is her urgency, right? And this is not an arrangement of mundane lust. This is an arrangement that Lord Jagannath has ordered this. If I can't fulfill his order, then what is the purpose of my life? And the potency of that and the softness of heart of such a great devotee could not help but move the heart of this great devotee, Jayadeva. Again, no mundane sentiment there. Oh, I have to do this. So they became a couple, and she was very devoted to him. Perfect wife in every way. And in that relationship was a complete assistant to him in his own seva as well. So, I don't know. I thought that they were living together in Navadvip, right? So, I don't, that's why I'm a little confused about this chronology, because where was the daughter offered to him? And were they living in Puri? Then did they go to Navadvip? This I'm not sure about. But anyway, just like Krishna's Leela, it's not so important, the chronology, as the pastimes themselves. So let's hear. So Jayadeva Goswami took up the worship of a Narayan deity, and in the waves of love he felt for him, began writing Gita Govinda with incomparable ambrosia. It is said, because I've heard in other places that Jayadeva and his wife were living together in Navadvip, and then together they went again to Puri. They didn't want to leave Champakahata, but by order of Lord Jagannath they did. Anyway, so because it was in Odisha, in Puri, that he wrote this Gita Govinda. That's said many places. So, it is said that though Jayadeva Goswami is responsible for all the moods and sentiments that appear in the Gita Govinda, he had some reticence about writing that Krishna fell down at Radharani's feet to beg her forgiveness when she was angry with him for having deceived her. On that day when and Gurudev describes this, he was actually aghast. He was afraid. His hand trembled when that inspiration and that verse, when that vision came to him. How is this? This had never been discussed before. Krishna falling down at the feet of Radharani. Remember, it's said that he was worshiping a Narayan deity. In India at that time, that conception of Krishna's submissive relationship with Srimati Radhika, their mutual, the depth of their relationship had not yet been revealed, right? So this couldn't be understood. How could the Supreme Lord fall at the feet of his consort and beg her forgiveness? So he thought, how can I write such a thing? Even though he saw that vision in his heart. So, on that day when he left the house to take his bath in the ocean, Lord Jagannath himself came inside, disguised as Jayadeva Goswami, opened his manuscript and completed the verse he had started. Smara Agarala Kandanam, Mama Shirasi Mandanam, and with the words Dehi Pada Palavam Uldaram, make the noble blossom of your foot an ornament on my head, as it dispels the poison of love in separation. Krishna was feeling separation because in that vision, Radhika was angry with him for something that he had done. He deserved it. And she was showing man, and he could not break her man, so he fell at her feet and offered his head at her feet in complete submission and love, which he enjoys. And the only reason she shows Man in that way is to give him that pleasure, right? They're always competing to please each other and make each other happy in infinite variety of splendid pastimes. So he came back, he'd come back just a few moments after he had left for bathing. And Padmavati was surprised to see her husband back so soon from his bath and asked, "What are you doing here? You just left a minute ago." The disguised Lord Jagannath answered, "I thought of something I had forgotten while on my way. I was afraid I might forget, so I came back to write it down." Right? Because Jayadeva couldn't write it. His hand trembled. He thought, it's not proper. But Lord Jagannath, I will write it. Not long after Lord Jagannath had left, the real Jayadeva returned. This time, Padmavati was really astonished to see him. She said, "You just left to go and take your bath just a few moments ago. You were writing your manuscript and then you left. How could you have finished and come back so quickly? I'm beginning to wonder who that was and who you are." Yogamaya is acting here. Jayadeva Goswami was clever enough to guess what had happened. And he went and looked at his unfinished text and saw the words that the Lord himself had written. The hair stood on end all over his body, and tears came pouring from his eyes. He called Padmavati and said to her, "You are so fortunate. Your life has been made worthy. You have had the good fortune to see the Lord himself. I am so lowly that I did not have that opportunity." So she greatly advanced devotee and had that secret exchange with him. Right? So Lord Jagannath wanted to make sure that that verse was there. He had great love for Gita Govinda. We're going to hear some stories here. There is a legend told in Jagannath Puri that there was a flower gardener's daughter who had learned Gita Govinda and would sing it with great emotion. Lord Jagannath was attracted by her singing and would go to listen to her, only returning to the temple after she had finished singing. One day, Gurudev explains that actually Lord Jagannath became mad hearing her singing, and in the nighttime, after the temple was closed and the doors were locked, he unlocked himself and ran through the forest like a mad person to go hear her. And thus he was covered with scratches and his cloth was torn by the branches and by the thorns. And so that next day, when the king of Odisha came to see the deity, he saw that the Lord's body was covered in dust and his clothes were filled with thorns. He asked the pujaris the reason for the Lord's disheveled condition, but no one could explain how it had come about. The servants of the deity were afraid that they would be punished. But that night, Lord Jagannath appeared to the king in a dream and explained that no one was to blame for his clothes being soiled that day. He had gone to listen to the gardener's daughter and had become covered with dust and thorns while hiding in the garden. The king was struck with wonder by his dream and immediately sent for the gardener's daughter to be brought to the court in a palanquin. After making inquiries from her, he decided that she should sing for Jagannath in the temple, rather than obliging the Lord to leave the temple and get all dirty. This was the beginning of the tradition of the temple engaging girls named Devadasis to sing Gita Govinda for Jagannath's pleasure. Oh, that's an interesting little note. But she was the first Devidasi. And also, it's completely with the mood of our Gaudiya line that the quality of bhakti is not based on one's birth or status as a brahmana or whatever caste you're born in, but it's internal. And thus, what is a gardener? A gardener is a simple shudra, right? He's tending to these flower gardens, selling flowers. But this girl, who knows what her previous lives were, born into that sacred place And knowing, having heard these songs that were being sung about Radha and Krishna, picked it up and had the talent, the innate talent from many lifetimes. And more than the talent to sing was the deep love in her heart that Lord Jagannath was attracted to. Now, there's a similar story with Mahaprabhu. In the last 12 years of his pastimes, Mahaprabhu was absorbed in Radha's mood and constantly relished this hidden spirit of love. During this time, he would savor the songs of Gita Govinda. Day and night, the Lord would speak as though he were Radha meeting Uddhav. Because Uddhav, remember, came to Vrindavan to try to pacify the Brajbasis and especially the gopis on Krishna's order. He sent messages with him, right? But actually he wanted Uddhava to learn something of the love of the gopis so that he could come back and share something with him and help pacify his own longing of separation. The gopis at least had each other to speak and speak the pastimes and remembrance of Krishna, to soothe each other's hearts. Krishna had no one he could share these deep feelings with. Day and night, the Lord would speak, this Mahaprabhu, as though he were Radha meeting with Uddhav. He would also relish the poems of Chandidas, Jayadeva Gosvami, and Vidyapati. This is cited in the 13th chapter of the Adi Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita. Mahaprabhu was never pleased to hear books or verses that contradicted Siddhanta, nor did he like hearing rasabhas, an improper mixture of devotional sentiments. It was the practice of Srila Damodar Goswami to examine all works of literature to find out whether their conclusions were correct. Only then would he allow them to be heard by the Lord. Sri Srila Damodar used to make Mahaprabhu very happy by singing the songs of Vidyapati, Chandidas, and Jayadev's Gita Govinda. It's also, this is from Madhya Lila, chapter 10. And now he's going to quote Madhya Lila, chapter 17. Srila Damodar would sing songs that reflected the moods of the Lord whenever they arose, while Ramananda Roy selected verses from Vidyapati, Chandidas, and Gita Govinda according to the Lord's moods. And here's from Adi Lila, Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 17. The Lord returned to external consciousness for a moment and told Swarup to sing some sweet songs. Swarup sang one of Vidyapati's songs and then songs from the Gita Govinda, which were greatly appreciated by the Lord. Then he quotes the Bengali, Chandidasa Vidyapati Radharanataka Giti Karnamrita Shri Gita Govinda Swarup Ramananda Sane Mahaprabhu Ratri Dine Gaya Shune Parama Ananda. Day and night Mahaprabhu ecstatically relished the songs of Chandidas, Vidyapati, and Ramananda Roy's plays, as well as Krishna Karnamrita and Gita Govinda, in the company of Swarup and Ramananda. Now there's a story here. That's from the second chapter of Madhya Lila. Jayadeva Goswami and the Robbers. Perhaps you've heard this. This is an extraordinary story. Many other amazing and miraculous events were scattered through Jayadeva Goswami's life. He used to serve his deities, Radha Madhav, in a trance of divine love. It is said that just as the devotee dedicates himself to the Lord also dedicates himself to his devotee. One day, Jayadeva Goswami was thatching his roof under the merciless midday sun. Lord Jagannath saw his devotee's discomfort and decided to help him finish the work quickly by handing him the rope needed to bale the straw and removing the finished bundles and placing them on the roof. Jayadeva Goswami thought that Padmavati was helping him in this way. But when he came down from the roof after finishing, much earlier than expected, he saw no one there. He asked his wife, and she told him that she had been busy elsewhere at that time. He was curious about what had happened, but struck with wonder when he went into the deity room and saw that Madhav's hands were black from handling the straw. He was thus able to understand that Lord Madhav himself had come to help him thatch the roof. He fell down before the Lord and started to cry. On another occasion, Jayadeva Goswami wished to put on a festival for his deities, Radha Madhav, but he was short of money. He decided to travel in order to collect some funds. On his return journey, he was stopped by a band of thugs who not only stole his money, but cut off his hands and feet and threw him down a well to die. I've heard they cut off his arms and legs also, but here hands and feet, this way he can't escape, right? Can't pull himself out, can't crawl, either way. So despite the pain, Jayadeva Goswami shouted out the names of the Lord loudly. He was not afflicted by distress of his condition, but he continued to chant the names of the Lord. After Jayadeva Goswami had spent 3 days in this way, the king happened to pass that way on a hunting expedition and heard the sound of the holy names coming from the hole in the ground. The king approached the sound out of curiosity and was horrified to see Jayadeva Goswami in such a serious condition. He had him pulled out of the well and brought back to his palace, where he had him treated. Under the care of the king and the queen, Jayadeva Goswami gradually returned to health. Both the king and queen were charmed by Jayadeva Goswami's sweet singing of the Gita Govinda, as well as by his saintly character. They immediately sent for Padmavati and had her brought to their palace. The royal couple heard about Krishna from Jayadeva Goswami and took initiation from him and started to make their lives successful by service of the Lord and his devotees. One day, the robbers who had attacked Jayadeva Goswami came to the king's palace as guests in the guise of devotees. Even though Jayadeva Goswami recognized who they were, he gave them the appropriate honor due to their outward appearance and arranged for the king's hospitality to be extended to them. The robbers, however, did not understand Jayadeva Goswami's forgiving and generous nature, and fearing capture and punishment, thought it best to leave without accepting the royal invitation. Jayadeva Goswami understood their fear and asked the king to give them a large sum of money and an escort and send them on their way. After they had gone a certain distance, the robbers said to the soldiers accompanying them, "You need not go any further. However, we would like to tell you a secret message to convey to the king. Prior to becoming Vaishnavas, we were the servants of a certain king who, for a very good reason, ordered us to murder this priest, Jayadeva Goswami. That is why we cut off his hands and feet and left him to die. The priest gave us a lot of money and asked us to leave quickly because he was afraid that his secret would come out." So they weren't content and, grateful for having been spared by Jayadev, and actually even given money. They said, "Oh, we've got to get rid of this guy." Wow, these were really rascally people. Unable to tolerate the telling of such a great lie, the earth herself opened up and swallowed the entire gang of thieves. The goddess of the earth was unable to support the weight of these sinful liars, so she swallowed them up. As they blasphemed the great devotee of the Lord, they met their doom in the bowels of the earth. When Shukracharya, the guru of the demons, told Bali Maharaj not to give the 3 steps of land demanded by Vamandev, Bali answered that he was the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj. How could he go back on his word like a miser once he had committed himself to giving in charity? Right. We did a musical play like that one time, a puppet show. And the puppet with Bali singing, I'm the grandson of Maharaj Prahlad. How can I withdraw my word? How can I dare cheat a Brahmana? I've given Vamana my word. When a liar steps up her terrain, Mother Earth feels pain. Anyway, it goes on and on. It was a little musical. But that's the point. The earth, now, this Kali Yuga, everyone's a liar. So, and in the Bhagavatam, he quotes this verse from the 8th canto, 20th chapter, verse 4. There is no greater irreligiousness than untruth, says the earth goddess. I can bear any burden other than that of a person who constantly lies. Don't be a liar. The servants of the king, nobody likes liars. Oh, God. You put up for it for a while, but after a while, nobody can stand that. Why are they lying again? The servants of the king who had accompanied these robbers were amazed to see them punished for their offense to Jayadeva Goswami right before their very eyes. They came back to the king's palace and told him everything they had witnessed. The king inquired from Jayadeva Goswami about the robbers, and he told the entire story. He said, O king, a saintly man does not seek revenge from those who have done evil toward him. He attempts to satisfy them with polite behavior. Even so, the Lord's flawless dispensation will make them suffer the consequences of their own sinfulness, as he did in this case. So, now, there's one thing, I can't remember it. I thought I heard that his hands and feet grew back. I can't imagine him the rest of his life he's going around with no hands and feet. I think that was part of the story, but it's not here. Anyway, if it's not true, it's not true. I don't want to be a liar. But anyway, Padmavati is tested. This is going a little long, but I want to read this story too. Jayadeva Goswami's wife became a close friend of the queen. In those days, the practice of sati, where the wife would enter the funeral pyre along with her husband, was an accepted custom. After her brother's death, the queen was mortified that her sister-in-law would have to die on the funeral pyre with him. Padmavati said to the queen, a faithful wife's life heirs leave her body the very moment her husband dies. Now, this is a practice of exalted persons. Not everybody did this. But this kind of person, it would be like a mystical experience. Like their life heirs are there. They're not going to feel the fire. Later on, it became forced, and they would drug the people and put them on the fire and all. But at that time, it was a different thing. It's not that everyone did this. When the queen heard this, she decided to test Padmavati herself. One day, she announced to Padmavati that her husband, Jayadeva Goswami, had suddenly died. As soon as this news entered her ears, Padmavati gave up her life. This shocked the queen, and she began to cry out of a sense of guilt for having caused it. The king went to Jayadeva Goswami and begged him to return the life to her. The great devotee Jayadeva Goswami whispered the name of Krishna into his wife's ear, and she opened her eyes as though she had just awakened. Upon seeing this manifestation of both Jayadeva Goswami and Padmavati's glories, the king and queen, along with their courtiers and servants, paid obeisance at their feet. And why would she be in separation like that? Not out of separation, I can't live without my husband. You have to add the quality of they were together servants of Radha and Krishna. And if her husband was not there, she had no more role in society, And she had no one else to serve in her service to Radha and Krishna. So what was the purpose of her life? This is not mundane lamentation and grief, completely transcendental. So then there's one last thing here. Jayadeva Goswami goes to Vrindavan. After this, Jayadeva Goswami wished to see Vrindavan. He took leave of the king and queen, and then, taking his deities, Radha Madhav with him, set off on the long journey. Once in Vrindavan, he began to serve his deities in a spot near Keshagat. We know where that is. When the residents of the Dham heard Jayadeva Goswami sing the Gita Govinda in his sweet voice, they were entranced. One merchant built a large temple for the deities on that site. It is said that Jayadeva Goswami returned to his birthplace in Kenduvilva after living in Vrindavan for many years. He spent the rest of his life there performing his bhajan. He would make the long walk to the Ganga every day to take his bath there. One day, for some reason or other, he was unable to make it. Ganga Devi was so kind to him that she came personally to the village at Kenduvilva so that he could bathe in her holy waters. It is said that he left his body in Kenduvilva, and every year on the first day of the month of Magh, a large festival is held there in his memory. There is a difference of opinion about where Jayadeva Goswami left his body. Though some say he returned to Kenduvilva, others claim it was Puri, and still others say that he went to Vrindavan. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur had stated his opinion that Jayadeva Goswami left this world from Jagannath Puri. Though some people say that Jayadeva Goswami returned to Kenduvilva to spend his last days, there is no indication anywhere that he brought his Radha Madhav deities with him. In fact, these deities were taken by the king of Jaipur to a place named Gati sometime after Jayadeva Goswami's passing away, and they are still being served in the Jaipur area. Jayadeva Goswami's disappearance is on the 6th day of the waning moon of the month of Posha. So, there we are. A beautiful recitation, eh? So, it went a little long, but no harm. We'll offer obeisance to Sri Jayadeva Goswami, to his perfectly pure and exalted wife, Padmavati, to our gurus, to our divine Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to our Shiksha Siddhas Guru, Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj, to all the assembled Vaishnavas, Vaishnavis. Jayadeva Goswami, Tirtha Titi Maha Mahotsav ki Jai, Jai, Jai.